Hey everybody, welcome back to the Miser's Guide to Evony. Over this last week, I've been doing some reflecting on the game. Things like, I did some videos on things that I don't like very much about the game. I did some reflecting on things that I do like about the game. And I thought about some things that I really wish they would implement. Some changes, not necessarily to the game mechanics, but other game modes and things, other activities for people to do. I mean, people don't go into this game and say, hey, I'm going to start cultivating because it's so much fun. No, they don't do that. In the same way, they don't go in and say, oh, wow, there's a new mysterious puzzle today. I really have to do that. Nobody gives a crap about the puzzles. But it would be nice to have something that people could do other than just look for bosses and look for resource tiles and look for people that have dropped their bubble. I mean, that's really not 99.9% of what the game is right now. And it would be nice to have something a little bit different. We have battlefields, which is really nice. That's one of the things that I like about the game. And we have server versus server, which I don't like, but it is something else. But there isn't a whole lot of innovation in terms of the game's evolution since when I started. There's a couple new things, but there could be a lot more. And sometimes they implement something that has promise, and then they take it away. Like, I'm thinking about the Battlefield of the Huns. Like, where did it go? We keep asking this. They drop it, and they let us do it a couple times, and we're like, it's not bad. I mean, it could be improved. It's not bad. And then we get a taste of it, and then it's gone. It's just gone. And who knows when the next one will be? A couple months? A couple years? Who knows? But anyway, I did a lot of reflecting over this last week, and one thing that I thought would be a really great idea, and I'm just going to put it out there because you never know. You never know. But I'd also like to hear from you guys. What do you think? I know a lot of games of this style have an adventure mode. And what I mean by an adventure mode is you go from stage to stage with increasing difficulty and you get rewards along the way, kind of like the puzzles, except in a way that actually makes sense for the theme of the game. This isn't a puzzle game, Evony. It's not. Anyway, something that actually goes with the game. We upgrade our keeps, we upgrade our rally sizes, our generals, our buffs, and troops, and all that. Something that challenges us at every corner to get better and better and better. I would really like something like that. I mean, the only thing that we have is PvP. We get to play against other people and test our mettle against them. But that's a dangerous situation, except in Battlefield. And, it's also very limited because their Battlefield matchup system is just not the greatest. So it'd be nice to have some kind of an adventure mode. And I'm going to kind of talk about this briefly and give some ideas. And I'd love to hear some of your ideas. You can throw them in the comments if you have any. So I'm calling this idea here the World Conquest, the adventure mode, because I think, it just follows the theme of kingdoms and cultures and Evony, and I think it just makes sense. So my idea here is, first I'm going to talk about why Evony should have this. Then I'll discuss how I think it might work if they did implement something like this, because it is in other games that are very similar. And then I kind of tried to visualize it a little bit to see what it would look like in Evony. I mean, I'm not the one in charge of their graphics and stuff, and it's probably a good thing. But I did my best to kind of visualize what I could think it might look like in terms of its construction. So why should Evony have some kind of an adventure mode? Well, number one, Evony needs to stop being fake. I hate those advertisements that advertise this game as a puzzle game because it is not a puzzle game. Remove the puzzles. Stop being fake. Put something in that actually goes with the game. And an adventure mode where, and I'll talk about the specifics, where you're, growing with your kingdom and you're getting further along the adventure mode as you go, that actually makes sense. I think that it would also be a great way to experiment in a safer environment. So we can't really experiment a whole lot with troop compositions and what works and what doesn't. But in an adventure mode, you could test. You could test things out and see what works against different compositions and so on. It's limited, of course, but it is something. Progress in the World Conquest Adventure mode, it would be relevant. And, I say relevant like the difficulty would scale. The difficulty would go up as the levels increase. And that would mean that the troops that you're fighting against would become more buffed and so on to kind of match that increasing difficulty. The march size would, the troop count in the enemy's side would increase, but that's because march size in the keep development of your own kingdom will also increase. So it should kind of match where you're at in terms of the growth of a kingdom. And, considering troops and generals, new tiers and all that. So it should become more difficult to accommodate for growth, and you should feel like you're accomplishing something. And I think that it's a really good thing for encouraging kingdom growth too, especially for the whole 1 to 35 that is incredibly boring. Like if there was a way that you could do an adventure mode where you could be learning about troops and about generals and about buffs and debuffs and all that in a way that's pretty safe, it would prepare you for PvP at the very least, because there's no preparing anyone below 35 for the big smackdown that happens when you're unbubbled and some Keep 40 comes by and rolls over you. I mean, you're not learning anything there except that you should have a bubble, which is kind of annoying. All right. The last reason I think Evony should have this is even elite players, after a while, it gets pretty boring. I mean, you basically live for Battlefield or server versus server, depending on what you like. And there's not much else to do except, buy packs and refine, get equipment a little bit here and there. It gets a little bit stale. But if there was something that was even challenging for the upper levels, because it was scaled to be that way, then, that would be something else that people could do, rather than look for the next puzzle. All right, how might it work? This is what I envision. I think multiple maps, kind of like, like they have in the Mysterious Puzzle here, they have the right idea of different regions, like different countries or different locations. That makes sense thematically. Just the puzzle doesn't make sense. The whole idea of puzzles don't make sense. But I think something like that, where you go on a conquest around the world, where you're, trying to take over the world with your armies, it just makes sense in the Evony world. And I think that kind of like in the Huns invasion, you'd face pre-built armies, and the pre-built armies would start very, very weak enough that a level 1 keep would be able to probably pass the first couple levels. And then the next couple levels would be possible with a level 2 keep, with a level 2 rally spot size and, development and so on. And it would continue to increase. But the armies would also be getting stronger to kind of match where you should be at. And so that's something I said. As the level in the map increases, the army sizes increase for the enemy. The enemy's buffs and debuffs improve to kind of match what you would expect for PvP at that sort of keep level. And I'm going to kind of show you a map here. Let me switch screens so you can kind of see a nice little drawing that I did for you to kind of visualize this. So all these little circles that you're now seeing on the screen there, I did a kind of color chart somewhere up there where you have blue means archer and orange means cavalry, ground is green, and siege is yellow, or is that yellow, orange? Anyway, those are all what I see as like each of these nodes is a level. So it starts off level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. But at each node, there is a buff for a specific troop type, which kind of encourages people to experiment with different troops and so on, so that they're gradually working at building up their troops. I don't know. something like that. I'm not saying that the enemy is going to be stronger in those areas, but you would get a slight buff to a certain troop type to make it easier or harder depending on what you have. And I also thought that it'd be kind of cool every couple levels, like you get one of each. You got cavalry, archer, and so on that you get buffed, and then on the 5th one, you have a mini boss. So right over here, that first star after 4, there's a little mini boss, and the mini boss might be built as an army towards a specific type. So like the first mini boss might be a cavalry mini boss. And then if you know a little bit about PvP here, you would want to attack a cavalry march with an archer march because all those cavalry will get wiped out. So it adds a little strategy and a little bit of a learning curve for players as they're playing. They learn a little bit about the mechanics of the game, and it's actually relevant as opposed to puzzles. And then let's say we get all the way up to 24, and then you have a final battle for this map. This might be the map for keep 1 through 10 or 1 through 5, or I don't know, somewhere around there. And you get to the final battle. You're getting rewards all along the way that help with your growth, speed ups and resources and materials or whatever. And then you get to the final battle. The final battle is like 25% of each kind of troop, and higher buffs and some debuffs according to whatever you'd expect for a really difficult player at that keep level. Like if this is scaled to be level 1 through 10, then maybe that would be like a level 12 keep, and a march size that you would expect from a level 12 keep. And level 12, maybe the next tier of troops that you have to build up to be able to get past that hurdle to move on to the next map and the next stage of development. Anyway, that's what I was thinking. What else? So I was kind of trying to visualize it, and here this is like an image of the real world. This is Egypt, I think, over here, and you can see like the Middle East on the right side. And so that's just kind of navigating through the real world, and you're on a conquest. You're on a world conquest, and maybe take us through all these different regions of the world, and we'll work on our world domination. So that's kind of how I envisioned it, and I think that 5 levels of growth, 1 to 5, 6 to 10, and so on, would be appropriate to give people challenges so that there's always something to do. And there's always like, wow, I'm like keep level 5 and I made it to the next map. I'm feeling really good about myself. And then I get to like the first mini boss on the next map and I just can't beat him. But now I've upgraded my keep to keep level 6 and I've got higher tier of troops maybe. And I've got a new general that I've been working on, some equipment. And then, hey, now I can beat that hurdle. That feels really good. I want players to feel really good, especially as they're growing. And you don't get that. You don't get that because all you have in this game right now is just the constant fear of losing absolutely everything if your bubble drops. So I'd like to see more things like this where beginning players and growing players can get some enjoyment in the growth process before they get smashed in the face. So the last little bit I had to say about the idea here is that each of these nodes, like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, they'd all be like 25% of each troop type. Just a very general kind of army. 25% of each of the 4 troop types. And nothing special. It's just the mini bosses that are geared towards a specific troop, so that you have to kind of think, maybe I shouldn't send a ground march against that cavalry. Maybe I should send archer. And you kind of learn some tactics along the way. So those were some of my ideas. What do you think? What do you guys think? Is this a good idea? Is it something to pitch to Evony? I know that Evony did in their Discord let us know that they are going to do a feedback session and they want to get some input from players. I don't know if they'll actually listen because they don't always listen to some of the feedback that is provided in those developers meetings and so on. But who knows? Maybe if there's some interest in that, in this kind of thing or other elements of the game, maybe there will be some change, some positive things, and I would love to see positive things in this game. I really like the game, but there are so many ways that it needs to improve, especially for growing players. So leave some comments in the video channel here, and I'll definitely read them, and just let me know what you guys think, and I will see you in the next video.